They thought he was just the janitor. But when the 4-star general saluted him first, everything stopped. If you believe true respect is earned in silence, not shouted in rank, subscribe now and let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after it ends. Tyler Quinn's first day at Fairgrove Military Academy began like most cadets, early, stiff, and suffocating. The corridors gleamed like parade shoes, and the air carried the scent of varnish and expectation. His boots clicked a little too loud, his breath a little too fast. He wasn't used to ceilings this high or walls lined with legacy. They called it the Hall of Honor. Black and white portraits of war heroes lined the length of the hallway. Sharp uniforms, sharper eyes. Beneath each photo, a plaque engraved with ranks, medals, and dates that made history feel less distant and more like a room you were expected to earn your way into. But at the end of that solemn stretch, Tyler noticed someone who didn't belong, or so it seemed. An old man in a faded gray custodial uniform stood quietly beneath one of the portraits. He wasn't sweeping or moving, just standing there. His hand rested on the edge of the frame, thumb brushing the corner of the glass, like he was trying to remember what had been behind it. Tyler walked slower as he passed, stealing a glance. The man's back was hunched, his shoulders weathered, but his stillness radiated something Tyler didn't understand, something almost military. And just as he passed, the old man spoke, low but firm. Don't ever walk this hallway with your head down. These walls aren't here for decoration. No threat, no smile, just truth, wrapped in gravel and years. Tyler hesitated, nodded, and moved on, back straight, unsure why those words stuck to him like static. He didn't know it yet. But that was the first time anyone had ever received an order from Elias Warner in over 2 decades. Fairgrove wasn't just any military academy. It was a proving ground. Sons of generals, daughters of admirals, legacies in human form, all strutted through the courtyard, with boots polished to a mirror shine and names already echoing through lecture halls. Expectations weren't spoken. They were stitched into the very fabric of the uniforms. Perfection wasn't suggested. It was required. In the third-year ranks, no one exemplified this more than Lance Hammond. His father had commanded 2 battalions overseas. His grandfather's name was etched at the Academy's West Wing. Lance didn't just walk through Fairgrove. He owned every step of it. Sharp jaw, sharper tongue, and a natural knack for commanding a room, even when he said nothing. To cadets like Lance, someone like Elias Warner didn't exist. He was background, a fixture, the man who made the coffee pots vanish at night and the hallway floors gleam again by morning. Elias never interrupted, never raised his voice. He wore no name tag, just a patch stitched with the word custodian. His gray uniform always clean, his routine never late. You could set your watch to him, but you didn't have to because most cadets didn't even look up when he passed. Tyler noticed this, and he noticed something else. Elias never avoided eye contact. He didn't initiate it, but if your gaze met his, he held it. Just long enough to make you uncomfortable, like he was trying to read more than your face. The real discomfort, though, wasn't in what Elias did. It was in what he didn't do. He didn't flinch when someone tossed a half-empty cup near his cart. He didn't react when Lance, in full view of the hallway, whispered loud enough for a group of cadets to hear, "Hey, Sergeant Mop, missed a spot." Elias simply kept moving, methodical, calm, too calm. There was something unnerving about that kind of stillness in a place that pulsed with ego. One evening after drills, Tyler was walking back alone when he noticed Elias standing under one of the portraits again. This time, he wasn't cleaning. He was staring. It was an older photograph, dusty at the corners, the label underneath rubbed away. In it, a soldier stood mid-salute in what looked like a sandstorm. The photo was grainy, but his eyes cut through the chaos. Fierce, focused. Elias's shoulders were perfectly still, but his hand was trembling. Tyler cleared his throat quietly, unsure if he should be there. Elias didn't look over, but he spoke, soft and worn. I followed that man once, into fire, into silence. I came back. He didn't. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Tyler standing there, suddenly aware that maybe not every ghost on these walls was actually dead. The next morning, things escalated. Subtly, but enough for Tyler to notice. During breakfast, Lance held court as usual, surrounded by laughter and noise. He was talking about a hypothetical chain of command for janitors, making sweeping hand gestures with a butter knife as he ranked imaginary mop generals and broom sergeants. Most cadets laughed politely, a few uncomfortably. Tyler stayed quiet. Later that afternoon, as the last bell rang for class dismissal, Elias pushed his cart down the east corridor. His steps, as always, unhurried. His presence, as always, unnoticed. Or so people thought. That's when Lance made his move. He sauntered over, holding a printed sheet of paper like it was an award certificate. "Hey, sir," Lance called mockingly. "I found something I think you might want to apply for." He slapped the paper onto the custodian's cart. It was a fake application, downloaded from some prank website. Application for Command Custodial Officer, Advanced Trash Deployment Division. Someone had scribbled fake skills on it in red ink. Stealth sweeping, tactical mop handling, classified coffee spill containment. The laughter was instant and sharp. Elias didn't even blink. He folded the paper once neatly and slid it into his back pocket. No glare, no sigh, just quiet acceptance. That silence cut sharper than any comeback, but Tyler didn't laugh. He couldn't. That night, back in his dorm, he stared at his laptop long after his roommate had gone to sleep. The campus database was only accessible to enrolled cadets, and Tyler wasn't supposed to go digging. But curiosity had turned into something else, something closer to unease. He typed, "Warner, Elias, staff record?" Nothing. He tried again, using combinations. Elias W., custodial staff, maintenance, service personnel. Still nothing. It was as if the man didn't exist, except he did. Tyler had heard him speak, had seen him pause before a picture of a man he claimed to have followed into fire. He had watched that same man fold a cruel joke into his pocket, like it wasn't the first time, and wouldn't be the last. And in a place where every name, every face, every plaque had its place. The absence of Elias Warner was starting to feel like a secret someone had gone out of their way to keep. Tyler couldn't shake it. The mystery gnawed at him day after day. It felt wrong, almost unnatural, for someone at Fairgrove Military Academy to be completely absent from official records. Late one evening, after most cadets had returned to their dorms, Tyler found himself lingering by the empty parade grounds, unsure why he was there. Officer Norris, an instructor nearing retirement, emerged quietly from the administration building and paused beside Tyler. They stood in silence, watching the empty field bathed in the soft glow of the campus lights. Eventually, Tyler broke the silence, his voice hesitant yet persistent. "Sir, have you ever heard of someone named Elias Warner? A custodian here?" Norris took a long breath, eyes fixed on the shadows cast by distant trees. He didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice carried a gravity Tyler had never heard before. There are men who have served this country quietly, so quietly their names don't show up anywhere. They live in the spaces between stories, between recognition and anonymity. If Elias Warner is one of them, then there's a reason no one speaks his name. Tyler felt his pulse quicken. He turned toward the instructor, suddenly desperate for confirmation. "Sir, I saw him looking at a picture. A photo in the Hall of Honor. A soldier in a sandstorm." Norris finally met Tyler's gaze, something unreadable in his expression. "If it was him," Norris said softly, "then you're looking at a ghost." That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. His mind kept circling back to Norris's cryptic words. Driven by an irresistible urge, he opened his laptop again. This time he didn't search for Elias Warner by name. Instead, he dug into the military archives he could access, flipping through old mission reports and classified battle accounts that had been partially declassified over the years. Then he found it. It was buried deep in a forgotten file with a faded heading. Operation Echo Point. Tyler's breath caught as he read the scant details. An extraction mission in the deserts of a distant land. 20 years earlier. 73 soldiers trapped, cut off by enemy forces. The commanding officer made a call that turned the tides, saved most of the trapped men. But the report mentioned, almost casually, that the commander responsible had declined recognition, withdrawn entirely from public service, and disappeared without further comment. No name was listed, only a blurred black and white photo. The same photo Tyler had seen Elias Warner staring at, night after night. Tyler leaned back, heart pounding, realizing he'd uncovered something he wasn't supposed to know. Elias Warner wasn't just a custodian. He wasn't just a quiet, elderly man cleaning floors. He was a hero who had deliberately erased himself from history. What kind of weight must a man carry to want his name forgotten forever? Elias Warner knew that weight all too well. It had been nearly 20 years, yet every night the same memories surged, merciless and vivid, dragging him back to Echo Point. The blazing sun had scorched his skin. Dust and smoke choked his lungs, and the noise, God, the noise, still screamed inside his skull like a siren refusing to die. The blast had shattered reality into slow motion. He remembered lying face down in the white-hot sand, ears ringing, vision blurred. Around him lay the men he had promised to bring home, lifeless and silent. Men who had laughed with him, trusted him, followed him without hesitation. As he pushed himself onto his elbows, sharp pain erupted from his side. But the agony of the wound paled next to the realization that he'd failed them. Every face that stared blankly into the burning sky was a silent indictment, each frozen expression etched permanently into his mind. He had crawled through the chaos, past twisted metal and broken bodies, to reach Private Henry Wells, the youngest soldier in his squad. Henry's breathing was ragged, his eyes glassy, fighting just to stay open. "It's okay, Commander," Henry whispered, voice barely audible above the chaos. Elias had tried to silence him, shaking his head desperately. He knew exactly what Henry was trying to do, to absolve him, to offer forgiveness he didn't deserve. "Stay quiet, Wells," Elias ordered, voice trembling with an authority he barely believed. "You're going to make it home, you hear me?" But Henry only smiled, weakly, sadly. "I'm already there, sir." Then silence claimed him. The rescue helicopters had arrived moments later. Too late to save most of them, but early enough to preserve Elias's body, if not his soul. And though he'd survived, something within him had remained buried beneath the sands of Echo Point. When he returned stateside, they tried to award him medals, commendations, promotions, but he refused them all. To accept meant honoring himself for a mission whose price was paid in blood he could still taste every waking moment. Elias chose obscurity. He buried himself behind quiet duties, mopping floors, polishing glass, living each day in silent atonement among those who would never understand his ghosts. And now, 2 decades later, as he stood quietly outside the Grand Hall, gently cleaning the window overlooking the parade grounds, Elias paused. Beyond the polished glass, chairs were arranged in perfect rows, banners displayed proudly in preparation for a visiting dignitary's speech. He hadn't bothered to find out who was coming. It didn't matter. Elias would remain outside, invisible, exactly as he had chosen to be. But fate had other plans. Inside, murmurs filled the room. Cadets stood rigid. Officers checked their watches. The double doors opened slowly, and General Richard A. Hall, hero of countless campaigns, stepped confidently through. But as Hall's gaze passed across the gathering, it halted abruptly at the far window. For a moment, he stood motionless, face shifting from surprise to recognition, and then to something softer, more painful. Ignoring protocol, he turned away from the waiting podium, moving straight toward the man quietly working outside. Cadets and officers alike fell into stunned silence, watching as General Hall stepped through the side door onto the courtyard. Elias turned slowly, feeling the gaze before he saw who it was. Then he froze. General Hall stood directly before him, eyes glistening, posture perfect. And then he did the unthinkable. He raised his hand sharply, a flawless salute. "Commander Warner," Hall's voice trembled slightly. "I never got the chance to thank you." The courtyard fell utterly silent. Elias hesitated, heart hammering in his chest, the ghosts of Echo Point surrounding him, more vivid than ever. Hall turned slightly to address the stunned audience inside, voice steady but deeply emotional. "This man saved my life, and 72 others at Echo Point. His name isn't carved on any memorial because he chose to erase himself. He chose silence instead of applause, humility over medals." The cadets stared, breathless, many looking down in shame, others in awe. Elias slowly raised his hand, returning the salute. No drama, no flourish, just quiet dignity, as he'd done 1,000 times before, on battlefields most would never see. Tyler watched from the edge of the crowd, eyes burning, throat tight. Before he realized it, he found himself standing, raising his hand in salute. One by one, others joined, cadets, officers, instructors. No applause, no cheers, just profound, respectful silence. Elias Warner nodded softly, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, and turned away. He pushed his cart down the familiar corridor, shoulders slightly straighter, leaving behind only stunned silence and the quiet echoes of an honor long overdue. A week later, Elias Warner was gone. The hallways felt emptier, the echoes sharper. No one explained his departure, and no one dared ask. Tyler Quinn walked the halls alone late one evening, feet carrying him instinctively toward the Hall of Honor. He stopped beneath the familiar black and white photo, the soldier in the sandstorm, still nameless, but no longer unknown. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a letter he'd written days ago but never found the courage or the chance to deliver. Carefully, he unfolded it, his own handwriting stark and black on the soft white page. "Commander Warner," it began, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if you'd want to. But I had to write it anyway, because someone needed to tell you. Not just thank you for what you did on the battlefield, but thank you for everything you chose afterward. You taught me something no class ever could, that the greatest strength doesn't shout, doesn't demand recognition. It endures quietly, humbly, long after the world has stopped watching. I don't know if I'll ever lead soldiers, but if I do, I'll lead them like you did, remembering the men beside me rather than the medals ahead of me. I hope, wherever you are, you've found some peace, because you've given it to the rest of us. Tyler refolded the letter slowly, thoughtfully, and slid it behind the frame of the nameless soldier. Maybe Elias would find it. Maybe someone else would. Either way, the words had been spoken, at least in silence. Days turned into weeks, then months. Fairgrove Military Academy moved on, new cadets filling its ranks, new stories replacing the old. But beneath the portrait of the soldier lost in sand and time, something new appeared quietly, overnight. A small wooden chair, polished and simple, engraved with words that made anyone who stopped to read them pause and wonder. To the one who never needed a plaque to be remembered. No one knew who put it there, though rumors whispered that sometimes, very early in the morning, before the academy woke, a shadow passed through the hall, pausing briefly before continuing on. Perhaps it was Elias, visiting the men he'd left behind. Or perhaps it was one of the many whose lives he'd saved, finally able to repay a small part of their debt. And if you believe honor lies not in medals, but in quiet sacrifice, tell us what touched you most in this story. Subscribe, and help us ensure heroes like Elias Warner are never forgotten.